Howdy folks, it's time once again for another new episode of the Parkinson's Disease Education Podcast. In this episode we're going to be talking about photobiomodulation, or PBM. Now, some of you may not be familiar with that term, but you might be familiar with the concept of red light therapy. You might wonder what that has to do with Parkinson's symptoms, treating anything to do with Parkinson's disease. That's what we're going to be diving into in this episode. We're going to be talking about how red light therapy, or light therapy in general, might actually help to improve or treat the symptoms of Parkinson's disease, and also what methods are available for you as a person with Parkinson's to try to look into for your own management of Parkinson's. So be sure to stay tuned until the end of the episode to find out as much information as possible about that. I'll see you on the other side of the intro. Welcome to the Parkinson's Disease Education Show, where we demystify the disease and empower you as the person with Parkinson's disease to reach your true potential. The content contained on this show is for informational purposes only and is not meant to be a replacement for information or advice that you receive from your in-person medical or therapy professionals. If you haven't already, I hope you'll consider subscribing, and for an even more personalized experience, please ask us about our memberships. Now, without further ado, let's start the show. Let's talk about red light therapy and Parkinson's disease, or photobiomodulation. Now, I want to preface this episode by saying that there is ongoing research in this area, and current research is promising, but we need more clinical trials to really show that these results are tangible and that they're repeatable. In other words, we want to make sure in research that these results are something that can be translated into majority of persons with Parkinson's. That being said, what is available in the research is promising and shows that there may be something to this. Also, anecdotal reports of individuals with Parkinson's disease, and even ones that I know personally, have spoken very highly of the benefits of, in their lives, of red light therapy. I'll give you some examples of that momentarily. But I want to principally, in this episode, dive into 5 different areas of potential benefit of red light therapy, or light therapy in general. And that is the principle that red light therapy could be neuroprotective and improve the health of mitochondria in the cells throughout the body. Secondly, that it could help actually preserve dopamine in the brain, or at least the production of dopamine. Third, it could help to reduce inflammation. Fourth, that it can improve motor function. And finally, that it could help with boosting cognition and mood. So we're going to look into those 5 areas principally, and then we'll talk about that a little bit more. So how could red light or near infrared light therapy be protective of the nerves or support mitochondria? Well, as we've talked about in previous episodes, mitochondrial health is really integral to understanding Parkinson's disease and the management of Parkinson's. Particularly with the episode we talked about alpha-synuclein, and also in the episode where we talked about ketogenic type diets and how that could help modulate mitochondrial and cell health in the brain. I'll leave links to those previous episodes up here so you can take a look at that when you can. If it's true, though, that photobiomodulation could help improve mitochondrial function, that in turn is going to mean you have more energy for that cell and for the cells around it, as well as the ability to reduce oxidative stress. Oxidative stress reduction is really important, particularly in light of sick mitochondria, which tend to produce reactive oxygen species, which is free radicals. So reducing oxidative stress is going to help the health of that cell that those mitochondria live in. So that could help protect the nerve cells in the substantia nigra, where the majority of dopamine-producing cells live. It also stands to reason it's going to help the mitochondrial health in other cell types, skin cells, and even beyond that. Now, how can it preserve dopamine production? Well, as we said before, if it's protecting the cells from premature cell death by helping the mitochondrial health and energy of those cells, then by definition, it's going to help preserve dopamine-producing cells from dying off as quickly. That could slow down disease progression in theory. Reduction of inflammation is the next principle. So how could it help with that? Well, again, it's kind of a domino effect. If you have reactive oxygen species because of the sick mitochondria in the cells, there's more than one gene that's been linked to Parkinson's disease that directly results in the problems with the mitochondria in those cells. When those cells are not operating, when the mitochondria in those cells are not operating correctly, you have production of reactive oxygen species, as we mentioned earlier. Well, those free radicals tend to result in inflammation directly in inflammatory processes. And the reason for that is a lot of reactive oxygen species result in production of rather caustic chemicals in the body. One example is hydrogen peroxide, which in high concentrations is literally like an acid. But even hydroxyl groups and other free radicals create inflammation because they're irritating. So again, if you have this domino effect, if you reduce inflammation, or rather if you reduce oxidative stress, if you improve mitochondrial health, you're going to in turn reduce inflammation. Now, while in the research I did, I wasn't able to find a specific mechanism for this. It's theoretically possible that the red light therapy may enhance movement and coordination, even balance, possibly reducing bradykinesia and rigidity. Now, it stands to reason that if you improve the health of the cells where the dopamine is produced, as we mentioned earlier, you could have a downline effect of improving those movement symptoms that are typically associated with PD. Finally, we have cognitive and mood benefits, or at least the potential of that. So, because the theory is that photobiomodulation can actually help with the plasticity of the nerve cells in the brain, meaning they're able to change and grow in different pathways. So therefore, that could theoretically help with cognition, mood, and sleep disturbances. Now, I know an individual with Parkinson's that has a very strong following here on YouTube that has actually chronicled his own journey using red light therapy. His name is David Gebhardt, and his channel is called Life with Parkinson's Disease. I'll link his channel up here. He's actually talked about his experience using red light therapy and a very specific product that he's used. But, he's a person actually living with Parkinson's disease using a product like this currently. So he's the most valid resource that I know of that I could actually point you to at least give you an anecdotal report of how it's helped him. If memory serves correctly, his biggest benefits were in non-motor symptoms such as fatigue and sleep disturbances. But I would go and watch his video series on that to really find out more detail. So what products are available to use in order to do red light therapy? There actually are a lot of products available where you could do this from your own home. David, I mentioned earlier, he has a couple of different types of red light arrays that he's used that come from Rouge Care, Canada. He's got one array that's large enough to mount on the back of a closet door or something like that. It's a very large array he can literally sit in front of and bask in the light. There are other portable versions that he has where he can travel with it when he goes camping or spends time in the bush. And there are smaller arrays that you could set on a tabletop and use just with the red light on the face or just the chest, because you could do it with your shirt off, for example. There's also one called Symbix Biome, which is more like a helmet that you put on. I don't personally know if there's more evidence or less to indicate that it's better to have the red light directly on your head versus just the entire body. I honestly, based on David's experience, would say it probably doesn't matter. At any rate, they are available for home use and can be ordered from multiple sources online. The one drawback I would say to the large arrays, whether it's a large one that fits on the back of a door or even the units that are smaller that could fit on, let's say, a tabletop, is really, in my mind, just the cost. Now, you could potentially buy once and have long-term benefits, so it may pay for itself, at least if it helps you. However, the one drawback I would say is some of those larger arrays can range anywhere from between $1,500 to up to $5,000. That's quite a bit of money up front for something that may or may not benefit you. So as an alternative to those more expensive arrays that you can order for home use, there is another technology I wanted to share with you that involves using a patch that you wear on the skin that actually is supposed to reflect that infrared light energy back into the body. And what that's said to do is stimulate peptides that will in turn stimulate stem cell production in the body, or a really release of stem cells that the body naturally has already in production. The technology I'm talking about is called LifeWave. LifeWave produces multiple patches, but the one I wanted to talk about right now is called the X39 patch. And again, it sounds weird to say that the patch reflects light back into your body, and I wanted to explain that principle just for a moment. We don't necessarily ever see light coming off of another person. You may have that expression of like, oh, you're glowing today. That's more of an expression than anything. However, there is a reality to the fact that we emit infrared light from our bodies. You've seen the heat signatures on infrared cameras. Well, there's a reason that that shows up. It's not just because we're warm, it's because there is literally light coming off of our bodies in the form of infrared light. So there actually is light that can be reflected back into the body. And that's the principle and the theory behind how X39 patches and the other patches that LifeWave produces work. The specific peptide that's said to be released is called GHK copper, or glycyl L-histidyl L-lysine copper. I think GHK copper sounds a little bit better and easier to say. But that particular peptide is associated with activating the body's stem cells and promoting healing throughout the body. Essentially, when you have stem cells released, the body is going to have healing happen wherever it needs it to happen. So there's a various amount of benefit that people that use LifeWave have experienced. Now, obviously, results are going to vary between individuals. As I mentioned, there's multiple areas where the body could heal itself depending on what the body needs of an individual person. However, I can say with certainty that I've had patients that I work with use these, and there's been some pretty interesting improvements. For example, one gentleman I work with has had a reduction in nasal drainage. So he had chronic nasal drainage. Not sure if it was related to his Parkinson's disease, but he did have a chronic rhinitis and post-nasal drip that almost cleared up immediately using these patches. In addition to that, his posture improved drastically. So energy level and posture improved in just a couple of weeks. His wife also uses the patches and has noticed an overall sense of well-being and improved energy. Also, her aches and pains started to get better just from chronic kind of aches and pains, the arthritic type of pain. It's pretty interesting that these patches can have that result over such a short period of time. There's other patches you can use besides the X39. For example, there's one that can help promote release of glutathione, and there are a couple of other ones for inflammation and so forth. Regardless of those specifics, this is a much more viable option to try something out, and if it doesn't work, then don't pursue it because the investment is so much lower. The starting subscription for LifeWave X39 patches for a preferred customer is somewhere around the neighborhood of $99 for a month. So not only is the initial investment low to have a subscription, but you have up to 90 days money-back guarantee if you're not satisfied with the results of the product. I think it says a lot that a company is willing to make that big of a guarantee of results. I feel like the LifeWave patches are a great way to potentially try a form of light therapy to help with your Parkinson's symptoms and just see ultimately what results you get. I'm going to leave a link in the description or show notes, as well as potentially a card in the video form of this podcast, so that you can look at LifeWave and do some research on your own. I think you'll be impressed with what you find on the site. And if you are interested in learning more about LifeWave, please feel free to contact me directly. I would love to have a conversation with you about it, because I do believe in this product and I do believe it's safe and a viable option for persons with Parkinson's to try. I look forward to sharing more stories with you from people that I know that use these, because I feel like my patients are going to benefit from this a lot, even people that don't have Parkinson's. So I will definitely share those results with you as they come in. But in the meantime, please do look into that, and I will leave that link as I promised. If you'd like to have a conversation about the patches, I'd be more than happy to discuss it with you. I'll leave a link as well to book a free call with me to have a discussion. All it would cost is your time. Well, that about sums it up for photobiomodulation, or PBM, red light therapy, infrared light therapy, in treating Parkinson's symptoms. Let me know if you've had experience using red light therapy, either from home use or if it was going to a facility that offers red light therapy, because there are a lot of wellness centers and places that offer red light therapy treatments. So if you've had experience and benefit from this, please drop it in the comments below and let me know what you think. If I find out more research that comes up, I will definitely share that with you, because this is not a closed book. There's ongoing research to see what benefits this may have for people with Parkinson's disease, and you'll be the first to know once we have new information to share. Thanks so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't already, please subscribe, please like the video and share it with other people. And until next time, be empowered.